I really think that it was becoming just as ridiculous for me to keep up the lies of the masks that I was telling,
Mm.
as it felt to be brutally honest. Like, those 2 things felt equally terrifying to me after a while.
Yo, I'm Bryce the Third.
And I'm Liz McKean.
And you are now tuned in to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. Here we dive into all the recovery stories from around the world.
And we talk about all pathways because there's no one right way to recover.
If you've been with us for a while, you know how powerful stories are. So get ready for your community to get just a little bigger today.
We are so glad that you're here. Let's get into the show.
Liz, what's up? How you feeling? How's your energy?
I'm actually in the mood for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich right now.
I wonder why that is.
Our guests suggest or reference to a previous convo. But yeah, I'm good. I'm feeling very cozy in winter and excited to be here. And I'm wondering how you are, Bryce the Third.
I see. Is that a turtleneck you got on?
A little bit, yeah. It's like a mini
like a
turtleneck.
neck.
Yeah.
The neck is warm. The lights is sparkling behind you. You really feel like good energy in the wintertime.
Good vibes up in here.
Yeah. I, on the other hand, am feeling like the mountain man of life right now, going through the wilds of the universe, all of the different emotions and all of that good stuff. But one thing for sure is, I don't know, man, there's something about like showing up and recording a show that like I look forward to doing because of the element of community that the show provides. Like, we'll introduce the guest here in a second, but I'm gonna talk to the guest. Amanda, you gotta know, like this, when you talk about service, and one thing, I'm 12-step, one thing my sponsor used to say to me, like at the beginning, was like, oh, you've done more for me than I've done for you. And I'm like, shut up. Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no way. But I probably wouldn't say it like that these days. I feel like it's mutual benefit, but I do get a lot out of this space. So I'm glad you were able to show up today, and I'm glad you're here, Liz. And now that I've talked to our guest, who is our guest, Liz?
Yeah, a little sneak peek. Well, Amanda, as you said, is our wonderful guest, and she is a woman living in long-term recovery from anorexia and alcohol use disorder. She's also the chief of staff at recovery.com. She's a certified yoga teacher, my people, and mentors women in early recovery. She believes that recovery is possible for anyone, and is honored to always hold her hand out to the woman still struggling so that she may find her path. And Amanda lives in Madison, Wisconsin, is a proud mama of 2 amazing humans. She is an amazing human herself. Amanda, thank you for being here. How are you today?
Oh, hi, Liz. Hi, Bryce the Third. Thank you for that. I'm great. I'm thrilled to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So just really, really happy. It's kind of like a surreal moment, to be honest.
How's the weather in Wisconsin?
You don't want to know. It's real cold.
Bet you I can relate here in Detroit.
Yeah, you're right, actually. But it's funny. I grew up in Ohio, and you wouldn't think it would be that different. Wisconsin, it's like a different kind of cold. Plus, Madison is on an isthmus, so it's surrounded by lakes. So it's that lake.
On an isthmus? What's an isthmus?
Oh my gosh, don't make me define it like I'm in social studies.
I was just going to say, it's such a flashback to social studies.
Strip of land with water. Oh my God, you guys might have to cut this out. But there are lakes all around. How's that?
It has nothing to do with Christmas, people. So if that's what you were thinking, like I was thinking.
Christmas, nope, nothing. We do have Christmas here on the isthmus, so.
Okay, Christmas on the isthmus. I feel like if I was an event organizer like that, it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, I was thinking a kid's book, like Christmas on the Isthmus today. Like,
gosh, did we just invent some really good marketing material right here? I'm gonna get on the horn right after this.
Yeah, you should. Yep. We'll talk to Madison.
Amanda, how is your energy today?
It's good. It's a little bit like vibrating, but in a centered way. So it's not a wild vibration. It's just going, which is good. Had some good lunch. I'm feeling fueled, and I'm under a blanket that you can't see. So yeah, it's all good.
I feel like I'm in a space in my life where like I need to see the blanket. So any future guests, please
Cozy
don't hide
vibes.
them. Don't hide the blanket. It's important to see the warmth. I'm in my cozy boy mode. Yeah, vibration is interesting, especially in recovery. Especially, I mean, for me, I can speak like long-term recovery. At one point, I would stay away from things that vibrated too hard or in a challenging way. And it's like, okay, let's just keep it one track and don't vibrate too hard. But these days, I've kind of embraced, and for those listeners who may have like read the book like The Body Keeps Score, or are in a somatic healing. There's a lot of like when we talk vibrations, it's not just like airy fairy energetic. Like there's actually like some things in our bodies that will tell us like, oh, this is a safe uh, thing to do, or this is like you're challenging yourself right now. And I think that even for you to say that just kind of lets me know how in tune you are within your intentionality with how you show up.
Thanks.
Where
Yeah.
did you get that in tune nature from?
Oh man. Well, I've been practicing yoga for I always do the math by how old my son is. So he was a couple weeks old or a few weeks old. So almost 18 years that I've been practicing yoga. Um, and I mean, I was not a well woman for most of that time. But that's the great thing about yoga is it something in it lands no matter where you are. So I just gathered bits and pieces over the last 18 years and the last 5 years in recovery from all the things. My practice has just like completely altered. Ironically, it's a much softer practice. Like the postures themselves aren't as, advanced, and I don't always need to do the arm balance when it's offered, or I don't care if I stumble a little in a balance pose. So it's just become a much more like accepting, loving practice. But yeah, yoga really teaches you to connect your mind to your body and hear the things that are happening.
I'm curious, and this is a question for both of you. Uh, what did it take to get to the softness in your practice? Because I'm kind of like dipping my toe in, and there's still that thing where like, I mean, what the teacher just asked me to do, I'm about to do it. And I see everybody else, and they're like leg over their head, and I'm like, I'm about to do that. Like I don't care what nobody else on. I'm gonna challenge myself to do that. And after, it's like I don't know if I'm here to like compete with everybody or compete with myself or like try to do something that I shouldn't be doing right now. And I'm still like trying to figure out how to show up with compassion in the practice. So like what did it look like for you to cultivate that?
So I'll answer first, then I really do want to hear your answer, Liz. But I always ask myself if it feels good. Like I have to ask myself if I go to that, I don't know, second modification the teacher offers, and that feels less good than the first one, then the first one was the right one. Do you know? It's like I used to go for that final one no matter what. If it felt good, if it hurt, I was, crying and hoping that it would be over any second.
Mm,
That's not the ticket. It's gotta be, like, honoring what feels good in the moment. Yoga is the only exercise that I've found that actually feels good while it's happening, you know? I think it might be harder for you guys, I mean, I guess I don't know your physical movement practices too much, but I know there's a lot of CrossFit and cardio and all that stuff in the Phoenix, and that is a very different beast because I think there is some of that, like, push through if not pain, but then discomfort, like, for the sake of the gain, and I don't think any of that in my yoga practice. So
no, yeah, just because it's at the Phoenix don't mean I'll do it. I'm gonna tell you that right
It's so
now.
true. Yeah. There's a lot of climbing at the Phoenix too. I'm not a climber. Yeah, it's so true. I did like CrossFit for a while, but I like weights, and Yeah, I have different areas where I'm more where competition can feel fun, and where pushing, you know, although yoga for me, even when I'm being incredibly when I'm listening to my body, when I'm being kind to my body, like I still have moments of discomfort, but I have learned the difference between discomfort that's going to be useful versus but discomfort is different than pain. Just like, like
Right.
there's I understand like it's spectrum, and I think for me, I started doing yoga more regularly, in the first few years of recovery prior to sobriety, when I was like still on the roller coaster, the least fun roller coaster. And I was in like during the times that I was sober, I would do yoga more. And like those are the moments that I started to feel like I think I want to be sober. And it just took, took what it took. But even then, I was so separate from my body. Like, that's something that I still am aware that happens sometimes, where I feel very separate from my body. And as I worked through recovery, I was also working myself into a yoga practice that felt more like it belonged to me. And I think the only language I have for it is I strive to be a person that my body can trust. And that's the case in recovery, and that's the case in yoga. And there's times in yoga that I have gone beyond what my body is telling me loudly, this is not feel good for me, this is no good. And then I've gotten hurt. And it's like kind of like I have to like almost mend that relationship. Like, talk about hairy fairy. This might sound a little hairy fairy, but like it feels like, oh shoot, like I did wrong by you. Like, you told me what you needed, body. And I pushed past it anyways, and now we have to heal from that. And my practice now is actually less consistent than it used to be, because I found that, I know when I want to do yoga, I'm going to do yoga, and when I want to not, I don't force it. And I've become a person that my body can trust, and I wasn't for a very long time. And yoga really helped me to find that. And it is a softer practice, and it's a humbling practice, because I've never been a person who could do the big fancy poses. I've never been an upside down person. I get seasick when I'm upside down. So like I just want to have kind of a nice stretch. Sometimes I want to feel like I got a little stronger, but yeah, it's a real relationship thing with me. And I don't know if that's something that is under like, does that make sense, Bryce, or is that like you crazy lady?
It makes 100% sense. I
Okay,
think there's a
cool.
couple of things I want to point out. Did you call it hairy fairy?
Oh, what did you call it? What did you call it?
That's one hairy fairy. I was like airy fairy, like
Airy. I
like
don't think I know that phrase.
it's not grounded, like it's in the air and it's kind of woo woo. That's a hairy
I don't
fairy.
think
Let
I've
me
ever
tell you.
seen a
So
hairy fairy.
I'm gonna say no. That's actually the opposite of airy fairy,
Okay.
because it's rooted in the solid nature, like the tangible nature of like our relationship with our body, and I could relate a lot within the hairy fairy realm, where there's times like being the person that like my spirit can trust, and there's times where like there's actions, there's relationships, there's situations, there's responsibilities that I'll put myself in, and my heart will be like checking in and trying to reconcile, or like, are you sure about this? Like, is this something that you're willing to take on? Do you think you can handle it? What are all the different things that will come with this? Can you predict? Can you run a simulation as to like how this will play out? Does this align with the foundation of how you want to show up and be the person that you desire to be? And there's been times very recently where things that would have like blew me out the water and like caused me to like go, I'm trying to use like good terminology, but like not be in my right mind. uh I've been able to hold myself in a way that it has just come from pushing myself a little bit, so not staying like in a comfortable lane in a way that like, oh, if it's not these things, then like I gotta like it's a I gotta run, I gotta go, and I gotta go back home, and I gotta like hide away. So like I do understand that, pushing myself a little bit and then to take it back from the hair and bringing it back to the ground. Those instances where I've injured myself recently. I had tennis elbow, and so one of the things from the exercises they gave me was just like, okay, know how to gauge whether it's like if it gets to the point of an 8, like don't do it. But a little pain is good because it's helping you get back in the game versus like resting and just not moving it, because then you'll get stiff and you won't be able to use it again how you did before. So like having to have that tangible relationship, that intentional relationship with my body in the moment. Like, okay, is this okay for me? Like, is it not? Is it cool? I'm not going to do that. Or I can push myself a little bit further. Like, once again, it takes intention, you know. Yeah. So no, not your fairy is not here yet.
She might be, but we love her anyway.
So did yoga play a role in kind of enticing you or encouraging you to pursue a healthier, more intentional lifestyle, Amanda? Or what were some of the things that triggered you into what you define as your recovery?
So I would say yoga helped me enormously heal my eating disorder. It's really good at kind of reteaching that interoception, that like understanding the cues your body is giving. Like when you, a lot of people with eating disorders lose their hunger cues, like they can't feel what hunger feels like. That happened to me, and I will never forget the first time feeling hunger after many years was on my yoga mat. It was actually really inconvenient because then, like, it was at the beginning of class, and I was like, "Well, now I'm hungry." But it was really very cool, and that's just after, like, a minute or 2 of just intentional breath, um, just coming home to your body. So I would say yoga is instrumental in that, and when you wake up, that connection, it kinda makes you wanna do other healthier things, make other healthier choices. Um, Now, my drinking, I'm kind of a unique, like, my alcoholism is a unique story. I didn't start drinking till I was about 36 years old. And then I was off to the races. They say there are two kinds of alcoholics: people who are born that way and people who just work really hard at it. And I was like, it was my mission, and I got really good at it, in just a few short years. So and this is another little twist in my story. When my drinking was at its well, when it was really, becoming a problem for me, I owned a yoga studio. So it was this, I mean, talk about the opposite of integrity or intention. My outsides were so clearly different from my insides. I was pretending to be this, like, very grounded, centered, like, healthy, yoga teacher, and, I was going home and, drinking so much all, the whole night, and then wake up and rinse and repeat. So so yoga, wasn't always a super helpful practice for me, but I always find my way back to it. Um, and other tools I found really helpful, um, well, the most important, and I think the simplest, is community. And even I boil it down for the women I mentor, and say community can just be one person, can literally just be one person who you feel comfortable enough to tell your everything to. I mean, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. And have them, look at you and say, "Great, what else you got?" And nobody dies when you say that out loud, because so many of us have been in those exact situations. So, um, and just by being honest with that one person, you start to rebuild that integrity. You start to um, shorten the divide between the insides and outsides not matching. It's those masks that I wore that kept me so sick for so long. Pretending to be perfect um, did a hell of a lot more damage than anything else. So, and honesty and community and integrity and building that trust, like Liz was talking about, trust with herself and her body, and Trust that I am gonna wake up and go to work, or wake up and make my son breakfast, all the things um, that I want to be doing in my life. So
I love that. I did not know that you owned a yoga studio. That's so fascinating. That's so, I mean, I've thought this before when I've seen it. There are plenty of places that I have done yoga that I don't want anyone there to know I'm a yoga teacher, because I want to just be able to be my peanut butter and jelly self and
mhm,
not have to like live up to anything of what yoga teachers are supposed to be, because,
100%.
and
Yes.
you've been in a class of yoga that I teach, that I'm not trying to really be much else than this when I'm teaching yoga, but it is amazing how the pressure you put on yourself when you are in that position. So to have yoga as this tool that is so supportive of your healing, and particularly with like the eating disorder recovery, but then to also suddenly find yourself in a position where it's part of the mask, like that's a really hard thing to disentangle. Like did you have to like set yoga down for a little while?
I did, yeah. Well, right, because it was only 4 years that I owned the studio, but toward the end, um, I felt like such a fraud, because I was,
Oh,
like, saying, and I believe all the things now again today, but I had stopped believing, the things that I was saying,
yeah.
about you. It's like falling in out of love with, they say don't go into your hobby. Don't make your hobby your
Oh,
profession, because
yeah.
you, like, stop loving your hobby. Well, so and I
Yeah.
also believe some people are constitutionally built for small business ownership, and I am not one of those people. I also had 2 small kids at the time, and I was just, talk about the bad vibration, Bryce the third. It was, like, constantly, like that. It wasn't vibration, it was, like, manic, like,
Vibrating right off the planet. Yeah. Like
I
feet not even
couldn't.
on the ground.
Over adrenalized is
Yeah.
actually what they call it, and it hilarious, right? Because 'Cause I'm teaching yoga, but I'm over adrenalized, and to the point where I couldn't sleep, so that was another layer, so I
Oh,
really, um yeah. So I had to break up with yoga, um, but I found my way back.
I think there's a lot within all of that. I mean, the masks, the separation between how we see ourselves and how we present ourselves. That was one of those things that kind of pushed me into like a point of desperation, where it's like I
mm,
can't uphold all these masks anymore. And it's like this is becoming a full-time job, and I feel lonely. It's like I don't feel like in community with any of these rooms where I wear this mask at, because I'm not this mask. And sometimes I wear the wrong mask to the wrong room, and everybody looking at me like, "Who the hell is this?" And it just gets weird. And then even that, I think, feeds into the other thing that I'm hearing, which is, that identity. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a podcast host. I'm a teacher. I'm a nurse. I'm a doctor. And it's like, no, you are who you are. And at least the relationship that I've built with my recovery is the continuous conversation with myself as to like the answer to that question, like who am I? And taking on the mantle of intentionality is like, I'm responsible for that answer right now, and even if it's like, if it's I don't know, that's perfect. But like, I think the times I felt the weirdest is when I felt like I didn't know, but I also felt like I was presenting in a way where I do know. And it's
mm,
like, this is getting tired, and I'm about to have a mental breakdown, and I need help.
yeah. Like, yeah.
I know.
I feel like I feel like there's so many conversations I've had, especially this time of year, with people who, this time of year that's supposed to be, I'm not sure when this episode's gonna be published, but we're right in like Christmas season. And yeah, it's like everything needs to be just right and just perfect, and they got to show up for this person, and you got to give, and you got to give, and you got to freaking give. And like, it just, it's just a lot. And like whether, recovery or just humaning, I think right now is just so much of that. And yeah.
So much so, I guarantee you somebody's gonna hear this episode and hear you mention that, because this is coming out. It's coming out in 2025. They're like, don't mention that time. Like, I'm glad that it's not that time anymore. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, I didn't even want to wait. This is a new year. I'm on some new stuff. Like, what are you talking about?
I know.
Because yeah, it does get. It's that supposed to. It's that supposed to, and it's like a big weight, a big energy on that supposed to be versus like this, like, is what is.
Yeah.
And I think recovery for me has like one of the biggest things that's biggest abilities or like variable of my practice that has been granted me due to like this way of life is being able to show up for life on life's terms in my crosshairs. Like, if there's some weird scribble going on, or like there's some things that need reconciliation, it's like, okay, how do I get back to like allowing for everybody, everything, and every place to be what it is, and like coexist with it, versus like, well, actually the only thing I need to change is like this person, the way they talk about this, or the only thing I need to change is like these clothes I wear, or my job, I need to get out of this. Like, those things come second to like, how do I show up for like things just as they are, and some people will call that compassion. A lot of people call it a lot of things, but I think that's just one of those things where like, what practices allow for that? Like, how, like, I'm listening to the show right now, Amanda, and like I'm dealing with some things in my life that's just like I just can't, and I'm looking for all the resources I can find. I found this show, I'm listening to it, and like, what are some seeds to help me figure out how to allow life to be what it is, but still be who I
am? So the last 30 seconds that you've been talking, I've been thinking about the Sanskrit word Satnam. And it has a few different translations. It can just be I am, but my favorite translation is, it can also be truth, but my favorite is I am truth. And just sitting with that, breathing into whatever feelings come up, I think is a great tool. That can be scary. So I like to offer sort of bite-sized, like set a timer for 5 minutes. And maybe that's even too long, maybe 2 minutes. And just, sit quietly and breathe. And notice what comes up and breathe through it. And it's like a muscle. So then the next time, maybe 3 minutes. But also, like I mentioned before, finding that one person and getting honest with them, and maybe it's someone in your circle, and maybe it's not. I mean, for me, it was a near stranger. Um, I believe in consuming things that media that elevates me, and start. You can kind of start becoming aware of that the more in tune you get with yourself. Like, I used to love, like true crime, and now I feel
am.
like it really dysregulates me, and I don't
Yeah.
like it at all. So uh, just tuning into that side, and noticing the people who, when you're with them, you feel better afterwards, or vice versa. And I'm not saying you have to, like, I mean, yes, I did have to, let some people go from my life, but it might just be, it can be softer than that. It doesn't need to be some big breakup, but just more like leaning more toward the light than toward the darkness. That's a lot. I feel like I've just talked a lot, but
Well, that's what you're literally here for. So.
It is a podcast.
So my favorite thing to do is walking with a friend in nature. I heard some neuro smart guy was talking about how those 3 components are like the very best thing you can do for your brain and for your happiness. So any one of those, and like walking is great. Talking to a friend is great, and being in nature is great. But if you do them all three at the same time, even on a 0-degree day here in Wisconsin,
Look,
On the
it's
isthmus.
a really great thing. Yeah.
let me tell you, them 0-degree days, man. I've been able to use them. I used to really be repelled by them, but these days, like, I appreciate like going outside. I took a walk last night, and might be an overshare, but I mean, everybody who listens to the show that like is invested in us for real. But like last night was tough, man. Like I it had like something's been coming up, that emotional conversation where it's like, I'm trying to listen to see like if I'm in alignment with what it is that I've asked for. And last night was a purge. So like, like tough tears. And then like I had to grab the journal and, and all the stuff is like, at first I'm like, it felt stuck. I felt like a tube of toothpaste with the cap still on. And like somebody was squeezing it. But then like as I wrote, like stuff started coming out, and it's like as I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, like I haven't even said this stuff out loud, and like it's, blah, blah, blah. It's just like all coming out, and like I'm holding a blanket, kicking my feet, like I'm like going through it, and the whole time back of my mind, like I just know, like, and after this I'm taking a walk. It's 1:30 and 2 o'clock in the morning, so it's the coldest it's gonna get, but like I just know after this, I got to take a walk. And I went outside, stepped on a porch, and immediately I'm like, I'm going back in the house. What am I doing? But I took a walk around the block and got far enough to where it's like, okay, it's going to take me longer to like turn back than it is to just do the block. And the whole block, like every time my shoulders started like doing the thing where I'm shrugged up, and like there was almost like a spiritual connection to like my physical where it's like, no, unshrug your shoulders, like allow for it. Like I know it sucks, but like don't resist it. You here anyway, so like allow for it. And then I'm gonna cry right now, but in that, it just felt like I'm leaning into it and using outside, using the journal, the conversation that I had before that. Was community, and so like there's these things that no matter what life delivers to us kind of seem to be consistent within a realm of like helping us work through it and show up for it. And I will add, the last thing I'll add to my little tangent, I'm using this as my therapist session, but community can be cultivated. Like I've been listening to this podcast for the past. One of my favorite rappers, J. Cole, has this podcast. He's been telling the story of his whole career, and just like hearing him talk to his friends about like all these pieces of his career that I've just been as a fan consuming the music and getting the output, but like all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes and knowing the stuff that I've been going through and experiencing, like it just felt like, oh, like there's more people out here like me. And it just felt like they don't know I'm here listening. I'm chiming in when they saying stuff like, yeah. And then that time when that happened, like, cause I was on the consumer end, but it felt like community. So I was listening to this show, like every time you turn the show on, like one is community for us. Cause we may not be able to see you, but we know we talking to you, and two, like, just because we can't hear you, like, doesn't mean that like you're not the homies. We appreciate you being here. All right, I'm off my soapbox.
Thanks for being all of you, Bryce, on this podcast always, but like particularly today. And I think, the question that was in my mind before, like early on, before we even really started recording, that I wanted to ask Amanda about is about how in the heck do you go about feeling brave enough to be like brutally honest with somebody? Like how do you get to that point? Because we are so fortunate to like have each other here right now, and then also to be in communities like we were talking about Laura McGowan and how we both really like her message and stuff out in the world before we started recording. And like one of the things she says is we are the luckiest, and I really feel that. And if I had heard that when I was like still in the thick of a lot of the hardest parts. Like I think I would have just been like, shut up. But I believe that, and part of it is because I have the freedom to be like, hey, here's a microphone in front of me, like pour my little heart out. So you had said that you did that, like, you know, you were in the thick of it and you told, I think you said a stranger, you're just brutally honest. Like, how in the heck do you do that?
So, I mean, it was a safe stranger. Like, she was a mentor assigned to me after I had done the step down IOP program, but I didn't know anything about her. I think, do you know what it is? I really think that it was becoming just as ridiculous for me to keep up the lies of the masks that I was telling, as it felt to be brutally honest. Like, those two things felt equally terrifying to me after a while. I knew neither of them were, like, sustainable. Like, you can't just run around saying, like, all of your darkest truths to anyone, but this one person I could.
Unless you
Yeah.
happen to have a podcast, because
I
we
was
do
finna
it
say,
every
speak for
single week.
yourself.
And you know what's crazy though is you'd start doing it and it started feeling really good. I mean, it kind of even a little bit felt kind of punk rock to be like, I mean, because I was so used to being like a good girl and looking a certain way and following all the rules, and just to be able to be like, you want to hear something true, you know, here it is. And I did it with my eating disorder too. I mean, I remember one time in the bathroom, a woman, I worked for this giant company. So like we didn't even know who really worked there and who didn't. There were too many people in the building. And so this woman I had never seen before in the bathroom asked me like, oh, how do you stay so slim? And I was like, aha, I'm starving. Like I just said that. And I didn't know I was going to say it before I said it. But so I did. And her face, I feel like maybe that wasn't the right thing to do in the moment, but it just happened. And I still would rather be 100% authentic and maybe make other people a little bit uncomfortable because I know I'm making a heck of a lot more people more comfortable just by being real. Real.
How do you maintain that realness within a professional setting? I mean, being chief of staff at recovery.com, I would assume holds parallels to like working for the organization we work for because like it's rooted in recovery.
Yes.
But like, is there anything like hurdles to jump over? Like when you add that professional element, or like how do you navigate that?
So, I mean, I'm just so lucky that this is the water we're swimming in here. I mean, we really we put our money where our mouth is. We want people to be well, to feel well, to take time if they're not feeling well. We encourage, you know, authenticity and truth telling. And so it is very unique from most, you know, corporate settings because we prioritize mental health. So I know that, I mean, I'm just so lucky. And yeah, I did say earlier, like, don't make your personal hobby or mission like your professional one, but this job is the exception for me because I feel like I get to wake up every day and do what I was doing on a volunteer basis, mentoring women, you know, learning about addiction and recovery and treatment and all of the different spaces under the recovery umbrella. And I get to do it for my job too. So I think I answered your question.
Yeah. I definitely understand the notion of like not mixing and when we do what we do, how we do it, contributing to other people's recovery, contributing to the recovery and behavioral health resources that exist in the world. A lot of people that work in this realm, I've seen kind of struggle with like confusing the work for their own personal recovery, like work. It's like, well, this is what I do all day anyway. So, you know, when I go home, I could just like, you know, not pay attention to my stuff because I'm on all day anyway. It's like, not the same thing, you know, which I could imagine if you're a yoga instructor, same deal where it's like teaching yoga's got to be way different than like going to your own yoga class and like digging into your own practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, because if you think about, like, say, inhale and exhale. Well, if you're saying those words, you're not actually doing those things. That's the
Mm,
biggest difference for me is like, if you ask my body would kind of feel the same whether I taught or whether I took, but like my spirit, it's a whole different game. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah. Holding that space within yourself and like really allowing it to be just all about you. I mean, because as a teacher, like you want it to be every individual person in there. You're hoping their experience is going to be all about them, like, and certainly feeding off the energy of like everyone being there for the same reason, for themselves is what you need. But you can't, when you're trying to ensure that that's a space for others, you're not going to have it so much for you. But I have heard again and again, I bet by your face, I think you've had the same experience, Amanda, where like family and friends will be like, oh, so you just do yoga all the time, and it's like teach yoga. Like those are two separate things. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's such a good call out.
mm. Say when I'm telling you to inhale and exhale, like I'm not doing it. And was interesting is like some of my favorite teachers, like just like I'm a wordsmith. I do a lot of stuff when it comes to like communication and words. And I was talking to somebody recently, and it reminded me of like, oh, the words are secondary. I've learned how secondary the words are to the actual practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't care how great I'm able to articulate it if there's not actual energy like behind those words of me doing the work, then these words mean nothing. And spiritually, hairy fairy, I would postulate that these words will not connect in the same way if I wasn't doing what it is that I'm talking about. So like if I was to lean all the way into just teaching, eventually like the potency of my teachings is going to decrease because it's like, but I'm not actually learning myself, like the best teachers are like lifelong students, I would say.
Totally.
I would say. And speaking of students, what is parenthood like now?
Oh my gosh. Parenthood is so wild. I am in this really great phase. My son is about to be 18. My daughter's about to be 21. I will say the biggest consequence of my drinking was my troubled relationship with my daughter. My son is very mellow, and he didn't. It wasn't so much of a struggle for us, my son and I, but my daughter. First of all, she was the only one on the planet who could tell when I was drunk. So I was pulling the wool over everyone's eyes, but never her, and it did some real damage. But when Maddie was 18, she left home. She's a musician and an artist and an actor, and she moved to LA, and she was just being a free spirit, which I love so much. Um, and she recently moved back to Madison. So I have my grown daughter back in town with me. We get together. She like wants to have coffee with me.
Yay.
And it's there are no words for how special that is to me. My greatest accomplishment and my greatest joy are my children. And it's really fun to watch them get older and to know that going back all the way back, call it back to integrity, just knowing that whatever I say I will do for them, I will do for them. There's no
Amazing.
question. Like I'll show up. I just show up.
Yeah.
That's
And they
amazing.
see that, and they see you show up for yourself too, which I feel like is the greatest gift of all, in my opinion, as someone who doesn't have any kids, but I've been a daughter, and I know there's so much more that I learned, and how to feel about myself as a woman, like from how my mom felt about herself as a woman. Then you could say all the wonderful things to me in the world, but if you're saying cruel things about yourself, like it's amazing how much. And you do a lot with does that, I mean, is that how does that translate, I guess? Or just, I'd like to hear anyways about how your work with women is important to you, because I know that is an area that is important to you.
Yeah, I think so many of us women struggle with a lot of the same things. A lot of, and I'm not saying this is unique to women, but a lot of us are taught to minimize our true feelings and portray a certain persona. I mean, literally makeup. But like
Mhm.
we are literally changing the way we look
Mhm.
before we go into the world, so we don't make people uncomfortable by our actual face.
Yeah.
Then
Talking
it's
about masks,
I
like
mean,
literal
exactly.
sense. Yeah.
It's just a metaphor for all of it, and
Yeah.
go along to get along. It's like why Gabor Mate says so many more women are likely to die of these of cancer because we shove it down inside of us and it festers and turns into toxic things, all to keep the harmony.
Mhm.
So and also my own personal experience, like I said, one of the worst consequence of my drinking was what was my relationship with my children. What I didn't tell you was that I almost lost my children. My ex-husbad and his wife filed for sole custody, and I had to go through the whole social worker, guardian ad litem, court system, went through 2 attorneys, just a, a tireless, relentless process in a system that almost wants to see you fail. It's like the process itself is so scary and painful. And now you're asking me to stay sober through this. It's
Oh
like,
my
what's the one
God.
thing that
Yeah.
makes this feel less terrible? So yeah, it's a very hard process for, I think, any parent who is going through that. But I think for mothers, just because um, you know, we're supposed to be mothers. What do you mean you can't stop drinking? Your children are the most important thing to you, right? And it's like, no, drinking, it's a whole different thing. Like, don't try to understand it. Yeah. Yes, my children are my world. I do believe they're why I was put on this earth, was to, be their mom. But alcoholism is powerful, man. It's kind of baffling powerful. Like, you don't try to make sense of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's why I love helping women, because
I
I've been
love
in a lot
that.
of those situations.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so true. I'm not a mother, so I don't want to, I might misspeak, but I saw recently, someone posted something someone who is a mother posted something about like how hard it is, around this time of year to be like kind of like holding up the sky. And it was, I'd made the mistake of opening the comments, like, oh my gosh, don't open the comments on Instagram. And it was just so many mean things to this woman who was just like saying a thing that I'm sure I can't imagine a mother who wouldn't be able to relate to that, and so many of the voices were other women too, who, it's like that fear, and it just all comes out in this. And it's just it's like you have to be so perfect in so many ways as a woman, and then add in the motherhood piece. And then, I mean, not even getting into the whole like mommy wine culture and how that's kind of just like put in your hand from the time you get the title. And it can feel so impossible in so many ways. And the fact that there are people who survive it and then turn back around and hold a hand out to others like you is, I mean, it's Herculean, and I wish there was a woman's name I could put there, actually, because I think Hercules is a man god. But like, I feel like it's just like such an enormous, I could just layer upon layer of all the ways that is just amazing that you did that and you got through it and you are helping others get through it. And now you are, building this relationship with your daughter. And I loved you before, Amanda, but I love you even more now. So you're amazing.
Like Herculesia.
Here you go. Let's rewrite those stories.
Well, I think the only logical place to go here, especially when we're talking about like taking care of or pouring into the community of women, as well as taking care of ourselves, so that we can take care of others. Amanda, if you could go to any period of time in your life, this could be in the past, it could be in the future, and tap on the shoulder of any iteration of Amanda, what point in time would you go? And what would you tell that Amanda?
That's. I think I would go to that time when my kids were little, and I had the seedling of the idea to open a yoga studio. I think I would tap on her shoulder and say, like, maybe not, you know? Look at all these riches, you know? And because that was something in my personality, is like, what's next? What's next? I couldn't ever just be happy with what was. So yeah, maybe just take a beat, hug your sweet little kiddos, and let that be enough for a minute. Yeah, I do.
Amazing.
No regrets. I mean, every mistake I made led me to this moment right here. But yeah, that's the advice I would give a friend.
Bonus question: do you think she'll listen?
Oof. Probably not. That's honest. That's real. Yeah.
So true.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show. Before you get up out of here, though, tell us a little bit about recovery.com.
I will. First, I want to say, in case I don't get another chance, how grateful I am that you shared, Bryce the Third, just about what you were going through, about like your experience last night in the cold. And I just love when you share like that, because I told you I'm a listener. It means so much to me, and I know to so many people. So thank you for that. Okay, recovery.com is our product is our website. So you can go to www.recovery.com, and our mission is to help people find the best treatment for them. So we allow people to filter by all kinds of things that you would never think to filter by. Obviously the main things like geographic location and you know, type of treatment, maybe like, or condition. Obviously, I just had a brain fart, but like, your condition and whether you want, CBT, DBT, that kind of stuff, or the type of insurance you have. But some people, their reason for not going to treatment is like they can't leave their pets. And so there are a lot of pet friendly rehabs out there, and you can filter by that. Or, a lot of people can't go without their tech. So, and most treatment centers don't let you have your phone for at least the first week or so. But there are some that do, so you can filter by that too. So, basically we know that I know from personal experience, the window of willingness is really small and fleeting. So when a person becomes willing to maybe explore, I wonder what it would look like if I went to treatment, like how much would it cost, or where could I go, or what kind of programs. So when they go to our website, their chances of finding at least a few places that meet the exact criteria they're looking for, so that when they do pick up that 100-pound phone and call that treatment center, they aren't told immediately like, oh, I don't take that insurance, because they already know that they do. So because every time you do pick up that phone and call and you get one of those responses like, we don't take that insurance, or no, we don't treat that condition, it's like, shoot, the window closes, and who knows when it'll open again, 6 months, maybe, I don't know. So our mission is to, and that helps both the patients and the providers, because it helps patients actually reach out and have a positive experience that way. And it helps providers because their admissions team isn't being taxed with calls from people who, they can't help. So that's our
And you
mission.
have more, and I feel like we think of rehab, and I'm just using the word rehab because I feel like before I was in this kind of industry, treatment centers is how I say it now, and I love that, but I feel like it was just always rehab. And I think that you have more than just like substance use disorder treatment, right?
Totally.
Isn't there like
Yeah.
mental health
Mental health,
pieces?
eating disorders. We have a lot of wellness centers on our platform for people who are struggling with burnout. Yeah, such a wide variety of conditions, addictions, other afflictions. And we're also looking to widen the continuum because, you know, treatment is one thing, and a lot of people do need that reset of treatment. I definitely needed 30 days without a substance in my body to even have a cohesive thought, and I couldn't go one day without on my own. So, but we also know like peer support is really important. That's what I credit with finally getting sober for good. Peer support, recovery community organizations, recovery community centers like clubhouses, all the different, 12-step and other, refuge and smart and all those sort of meeting finders. We want to expand into all these things to help people find help.
I love it. Yeah, I remember the first time we talked to your team, it was just like, how freaking cool that this is just, that this exists. There's so many things now that I'm like, the things I wish I had back then that are here now. And it's so exciting to be part of it. And it's so exciting to see it growing and to see like the definitions of recovery expanding and like just being like space for everybody and their unique experience and like the tools that you need for you, because we're not all exactly the same, and it's just awesome. And I'm just so grateful that this work is being done. So thank you for doing it.
That's how we feel about the Phoenix too. I mean, there's so many synergies, and like seeing you guys in, like the festival scene now and like just everywhere and doing so much for people in that community, building that community. Whether you're doing CrossFit or not, it's like there's a group for you.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so social events for the win.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, Amanda, we really, really appreciate you coming on. I can think of 3 people that when this episode releases, I'm gonna send it to. This has been a dope conversation, and thank you all for listening thus far. Take those resources, take recovery.com, take the Phoenix app, and if you need it, pop on there. If you know somebody who may need it, send this to them. And if you don't know somebody who may need it yet, put it in your pocket so that you become a recovery resource. You become one of those resource brokers where it's like, okay, if somebody needs it, I know where to point them to. That's the importance of having these conversations publicly. So share this episode. We love you. Happy New Year. And we will talk to you or be heard by you on the next episode of the Rise, Recover, Live podcast.